We need to jump right into the Nasdaq 100 and the SP 500 with what's happening on the day. Now, if you don't know, we've actually started to establish new lows here, and then we had a bounce from this level. I'm going to talk about exactly how I'm trading this, what I'm looking at, and how I am preparing for this week. Now, it's important to realize today we had a lack of volume, to say the least. It was an extreme lack of volume. Now we had that dip, you kind of had some little bit of a move up, and then ultimately came down, made these new lows, and now you're kind of consolidating below the monthly as we speak. You go over to something like the SPY, you can actually see that you have not made a new low yet. Go over to ES, you can see the same thing. The only thing that has made these new lows is going to be Nasdaq and the Qs, and the Qs really have established a new low here, right? And now you're actually retesting the previous bottom that you had going into what I believe that was September 30th, right? So you came, retested, now you're sitting beneath that level as we speak. Now, personally, I am completely liquid out of my oil plays, out of S&P, out of everything. I want to make that really clear so that you know that there's no bias here as far as what I'm looking at. And I want to make everything really clean and clear so you can see where we're operating. Now, I want to spend a majority of the viewpoint here on Nasdaq because right now Nasdaq is leading the market. If you come in here, we can go back to around June and you can see where we were basically during that time. You can see our low was right about here, as you can see, and we've really held below that level. It's also worth mentioning the last time you broke here, you held below that level once again, okay? So the next day after that is when you actually end up pushing back up. So right here, it looks like you're going to end the day below this level once again, actually rejecting off of it. So as we look at this, we have to look at this as one, you are breaking below a key level and you're holding below it now. So looking at this, I have to anticipate some downside here. But for myself, I'm not in puts or grabbing any more puts. Why? Because of how you've broken down and because of how we've reacted from these levels. For instance, if I come to something around the 15-minute to 1 hour time frame, when we get in here, you can see that we continuously are bouncing right now. We're trying to get out of this. It's not as strong as before when we were down here, but you can still see that you are trying and you won't really have a clear shot answer until tomorrow. Now, it's also worth mentioning today is a bank holiday being Columbus Day. It's important to realize that you're seeing a lot less volume, most likely due to that fact. Okay, so we need to understand a few things happening here. Now, again, we had some volume. This wasn't a complete excuse of saying, well, you're just pushed down because it was a bank holiday. I want to address that first. Next up, going into something like the dollar, you can also see DXY continues to push up to new highs, trying to get back to new local highs as well from what you were pushing down from. Next up, going into yields. These are all very important things that are going to stack into the end of the video, as you had yields kind of going parabolic for a little bit today. Really big jump. Now, again, yields are pushing back up to those previous highs where they were and looking like they want to run even further. Junk bonds, once again, we talked about the rejection that you had at this previous high going into your June lows, boom, getting rejected right back down. These are all the concerns that I'm looking at on the market right now and that have me ready and prepared for more downside, but also have me just kind of sitting on my hands as we speak. And I know this might not be the video that everyone wants to hear. They want to hear me telling you what to buy, get into this X, Y, and Z, and you'll make all your money. I'm just telling you from my point of view. How I trade goes back to Nasdaq and really clarifies things, and I try to make this really simple for Discord as well. Majority of all my entries were right here at supply, right? This was right where we wanted to get that test. You pushed up, we had the test, that's where we got in, and guess what? We wrote a lot of these plays to the downside. But now that we're sitting at these lows, we have to kind of be patient because we don't know how we're going to move going into tomorrow. We don't know necessarily if buyers are going to show up like they did back here, right? So we want to always give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room to be prepared just in case they do show up and we're not, overextending into some of these plays. I always like to buy calls at demand and then always buying those puts at the supply. Now today, obviously, I'm not buying calls because over the past few weeks, I just have not been trading calls. I don't like them. I don't think there's strength in the market. I believe there's really no reason we should be bouncing from a fundamental standpoint as well. However, again, I'm trying to stay prepared with all things considered. Next up, I also want to realize and go over this as well. This just came in. We talked about the railroad union. Now, if you don't know, they rejected the labor deal backed by Biden, and it was really set up to give a 25 increase of pay over the next 5 years. Really wild, pretty terrible, and they're looking to get out of this. So this is important to note, and this could be very bearish going forward with the Fed because this could hike inflation tenfold as well. So these are just a group of terrible things that are kind of just creating the perfect storm, but you need to be kind of prepared with all this news as well. If you follow me on Twitter, I post all this as well, so you got to be staying up to date even if you're not in Discord, but I like to keep everyone prepared as well. Now, before we go any further, I actually ask you to consider doing 2 things: liking and subscribing. I forgot to do that in the beginning of the video. I'm sorry, but it helps out the channel a lot. Every single day I'm making videos for you guys, keeping you prepared so you know what to expect during the day and on the market as well. I'm also doing some of these lives during the week as well, so make sure you have the notifications turned on. Now, as we get in here again, this is just what I want to highlight of where exactly you are and how you're moving. So again, even near the end of the day, you're seeing a little bit of buying stepping in. And so I just don't like this. As well, going into some of our favorite stocks we're looking at. Meta, you've broken down, as we can tell here. Look, you've broken down below 52-week lows. Now you're trying to retest previous lows. Again, these are all setting up for continuation. AMD straight bear flagging below 52-week lows as well. Nvidia, very similar chart, a little bit more bullish here. Amazon, really weak, holding on to some of these lows here. I can go on and on. Tesla, another base here, ready to drop once again. So all these look terrible. But again, I have to tell you what I'm doing. I'm sitting on my hands, waiting for 1, we need volume. We need volume to get an answer. 2, you just don't want to overextend and give up some of these gains that you have, right? So for instance, I gave up some gains today on Oxy going in from Friday. I told everyone I had some Oxy calls. But what did I say here though? I got in about right here near the end of the day on Oxy. That's where I got in, ended up cutting about right here when you broke below our key level here. Now, the thing to know here is we were trading this all the way up. So we were okay having a little bit more risk, but when we were making 50 to 70% on some of these trades, you're willing to give up 15% on a stop loss, right? To keep the train going. That's how overall I was trading this. But going into some of this, I just don't believe it's worth the risk right now for myself. And I know, again, this might make some people mad that I'm not giving you hand-holding answers, but I have to be transparent with you, so hopefully you can be prepared when you are trading for yourself, right? Going into VIX as well, we've seen more of this consolidation in this range. Kind of had a bull flag, you're breaking up and you're kind of consolidating here at this $32, $34 level. This shows a lot of weakness on the market as well for me. But again, you have to be able to recognize when there's uncertainty of where you're at. And right now, I can strongly say, in my opinion, there's some uncertainty down here, and that's why I'm just trying to be patient. I'm going to go into Cheddar Flow and show you some of the positions as well. As far as Qs, definitely in favor of the downside, not as crazy with some of these premiums. Going into SPY, a little bit more crazy, a lot more premiums favoring the downside. Going into VIX, again, favoring the upside, expressing the need for more downside pressure. Okay, so as we look at this, that's what I'm looking at, and that's my cause for concern. SPX, more of a day trader perspective, but worth looking at as well. So that's what I'm viewing here. That's how I'm looking at the market. And again, the video is probably not going to be as long as my other ones. There's not too much to cover, so I don't want to waste your time excessively trying to get, views from you guys. That's just what I'm looking at on the market. I'm being pretty patient, sitting on my hands. I'll have another video coming out tomorrow, hopefully more volume, so I can go over a little bit more of the technicals going on here. But I don't even want to cover Bookmap just because the volume today was so lackluster, and I don't want to give anyone false information or kind of misleading based on how we moved and traded on the day. I'm just not interested here. It's not my overall forte. I don't want to trade this when it starts chopping like this. This is the number one time traders are going to lose money, is when you start to chop near a demand or near a supply. So have a plan, know what you're looking for, but ultimately don't force those trades. And remember, you are responsible for your own trading, so do your own DD.